In the past year, Iman and his team have been able to build strategic partnerships with multiple stakeholders, including 26 provincial governments, 300 city agency governments, top players in banking and in telecommunication, foreign embassies, and international organizations. One of his most notable collaborations has been with Line App, which helped launch Line Academy that provides an alternative and innovative way of learning. Over 3 million students have already accessed these services in just 6 months. Prior to founding Ruangguru.com, Iman was known in Indonesia as one of the key opinion leaders in youth development. He has co-founded and led some of the largest youth-led movements in Indonesia, such as the Indonesian Future Leaders and the Indonesian Youth Parliament, which mobilized thousands of young people for the advancement of social good. Iman is also the youngest board member of the YCAB Foundation, which has been recognized and celebrated globally. He has received the 2011 ASEAN Youth Award, recognition for the 2011 UN Youth Assembly on Humanitarian Development, the 2011 Global Team Leader Award, and the 2008 Indonesian Youth Leader Award by the President of the Republic of Indonesia. He is also an Education Fellow of the Qatar Foundation and Laureate Global Education. His work has been featured by CNN, BBC, Euronews, Bazaar, Esquire, Forbes, and many other news outlets. In 2016, he was invited to give a lecture in Beijing and was recognized by UNICEF as a young innovator to watch. In 2016, he was appointed by the government of Indonesia to sit on the Youth Panel of Education Commission to provide recommendations to global leaders on global financing and education. Recently, Iman also was included in the list of the 2016 Forbes Asia 30 Under 30 for Consumer Technology. He received his BA cum laude in International Relations from the University of Indonesia, where he was awarded the nation's Best Student Award by the Ministry of Education and Culture in 2013. In 2014, he completed his MA summa cum laude from the University in International Education from Columbia University in New York. Today, he is busy running Ruangguru with the staff of over 150 members to provide better access to quality education in Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me now in welcoming Mr. Iman Usman.
I hope you guys can see me from the back. Well, it's really a great honor to be here today. I think it's quite I don't know, I feel like I have a tear in my eyes because it reminds me exactly of the moment that happened to me 4 years ago. I was exactly in Sadiq's position, delivering commencement speech with a broken English, not even close to what Sadiq did today. So I'm hugely impressed with the quality that I exhibit today. I graduated from college 4 years ago, and a year later I completed my master's degree. So practically I've only been in the industry for about 3 years. And never I thought I would do this this early. So from the bottom of my heart, I just want to thank you for this opportunity to be among you all, to celebrate, I think, one of the most beautiful moments in our lives. So just thank you for giving me that opportunity. When I was in college not long ago, every time I nag about my school life, there was always people who would say to me, "Oh wait, this is not real life yet." And I was like, "So you think this is not real life? Like reading hundreds of pages every single week, completing 3 to 5 papers a week, and maybe being scolded by a professor for not doing enough is not real, or the fact that I had to retake the class because I miserably failed in the class, do you think it was not real enough? And I felt everything was real enough. Only till I graduate, I started to understand what that real life phrase really means. It means a life full of rejections. When I thought I had everything, a cum laude degree from one of the most difficult programs to get into, from arguably the best university in the country, a national best student title where I had to beat every single best student from every single university in this country to finally earn the prize, a long resume filled with work, internship, research, community development experiences. I even got myself to speak at the podium of the General Assembly of the United Nations in New York, something that only few people in this world had experienced, yet I got rejected. I thought I got myself covered, and yet I got rejected straight after my graduation. Some of you might question, in what way did I get rejected? I got rejected when I applied to schools to become a teacher. Most of these schools did not respond, so I guess they were not even interested to explain why I was not qualified for the job. I remember only one responded to me with a very brief response. Sorry, your background did not fit in with the job description. A few weeks later, I got rejected again when I applied to work for a local nonprofit in Indonesia. I wanted to work so badly in a hope that I could learn from someone who was more experienced. And they didn't respond as well for months. So I got rejected, twice in a row. I was not the kind of person who take rejections lightly because I wasn't built for that. My past life taught me that I could get what I want as long as I worked hard enough. Yet, at the moment that I needed that style to work the most, reality slapped me, not even just once. It took me months to learn to accept that maybe there are things that I couldn't control. There are things that were not meant to be, and what you need is just to let go, to move on. I'm telling you this story because a lot of people thought I've always been in a straight shooter. Nope, I got rejected like everybody else. And please underline everybody, including the people you are seeing in front. Because real life means a life full of rejections. It is inevitable. There are always going to be people who think you're not enough or you do not deserve to get where you want to be. You're always going to find that situation in your life. And what makes one different from the rest is depending on how you're going to deal with it, with rejections. When you get rejections, you learn to let go. To let go does not mean that you are not allowed to be sad. It is okay to be sad. In fact, I have been sad for a lot of times, to be disappointed. But to let go means not to stop, not to give up, not to let other people define your life. I often think like I'm given the opportunity to author my own experience. Those experiences will become your story, your narrative. It has plots, it has ups and downs, and like many great superhero stories, it has a heroic moment, the moment of truth. But you will not get to the beautiful, happily ever after ending if you're not able to learn to accept rejection. If I didn't move on, I wouldn't be where I am today. Even until this time, I still get rejections from clients, from partners, from my team, from customers. What did I do? Just accept it, evaluate, and iterate, basically move on. Accepting yourself does not justify you to be lazy, to settle quickly, or to make you feel like you are not meant for greatness. Acceptance is not the same with making excuses. Just remember that every time you get rejected from something good, you're actually being redirected for something better. Let me repeat again. Every time you got rejected for something from something that you think are good, you're actually being redirected for something better. If I didn't get rejected, there would not be grad school. There would not be summa cum laude. There would not be Ruangguru. But to get to something better, you need to have the attitudes that you can turn into habits and later into character. I might be only a few years older than you. I'm 25 years old right now, so probably just, I don't know, how old are you now? Like 20, 19, 21? Yeah, just a few years older than you. And if I could share a few pieces of advice that take me to where I am today, I think here are those attitudes. The first one is, understand your time zone. When I was in college, I studied international relations, so I learned a concept called security dilemma. According to John Hurst, security dilemma is a structural notion in which the self-help attempts to states to look after the security needs regardless of intention to lead to rising insecurity for others as each interprets its own measures as defensive and measures of others as potentially threatening. Sounds confusing. In simple words, when you're being threatened or potentially being threatened, you raise your guards. I believe that this concept might also explain not only what happened to the states, but also to the feelings of many of us. Today or later, some of you might become very confident with the choices you made, but many of us will leave our majors with some big ideas of the job we would like to get or the business that we would like to start. And when you get to that point, you learn that you're left behind from your peers. You start to feel insecure, basically. You're trying everything possible, and underline everything, to catch up or perhaps beat your peers. When you realize that you couldn't catch up anymore, then you decided to give up. This becomes very relevant as we live in a very competitive world as today. You raise your guards as you feel being threatened. That is security dilemma. But you know what? Life is not a race. It's not always about who starts early or who gets it fast. Everyone will have their own timing. Do not compare your progress with others. We all need our own time to travel our own distance. Everyone is different. Each person discovers their passions at a different stage of life. Some discover their own path like early in childhood, or perhaps in their teenage years, or even in their adulthood, and nothing is wrong nor better. Everyone also learns differently, and therefore it takes different lengths to master something. Some get it fast, some take longer. Everyone has their own rhythm. People thought that I became like this instantly. Nope, I've started my journey since I was a child, since I was 10 years old perhaps, way earlier than many of my peers. And I don't consider myself, to become smarter nor more genius than any of my peers. I think I was just lucky that I started way earlier and I decided to remain consistent on my path. So I learned to fail and navigate my way earlier, and even I'm still figuring out every single day. To a lot of people who fail to live their dreams merely because they fail to manage their realities today. They give up on their dreams halfway. They do not understand their time zone. If you see your friends, they might seem to get ahead of you. Do not envy them, it's their time zone. You just need to stay true to yourself and stay focused, and yours will come soon. My second piece of advice is always try for your best. Not every plan will go as expected, and you probably have experienced that. Not everyone will also stay with you. Not everything can stay in your hands. Failure is bound to happen, and expect it to happen. But always give your best nevertheless. There's no harm of giving your best in anything. If you later decided to study, remember that you're not doing it for your professor. If you later decided to work, remember that you're not also doing it for your boss. You do not work for your boss. You do not work for your company either. You work for yourself. Whatever you do, the person who will get the most of it is you. If you don't get a professor or the boss you like, then because of that, you decide to give a half-baked award. Your company or the class might temporarily get that effect from what you do, but the permanent impact lives on you. At the end of the day, you're building your own career, your own reputation. Your work is a reflection of you. And instead of focusing on the drama, I would rather to focus on how I can make the best of my work. Because at the end of the day, it's going to be my portfolio. Aside from the fact that I will stay in the same company or move somewhere else, this portfolio will be your masterpiece that will be remembered by others. So stop making excuses and start giving your best. And this brings me to my third piece of advice. The third piece of advice is do not reduce what is great just because you live in a world where the average is overrated. We live in a place where when you have multiple wins, people will applaud you. People will think that you're already the master cricketer. People seek for your advices. People want to hear your talk. You'll be given a platform to share your ideas and even establish the norms, or what we call best practices. If Malcolm Gladwell say that you need 10,000 hours of deliberate practice to become a master in any field, here, in many cases, you do not need that many. Look at our politicians. They don't need 10,000 hours to become We live in a place where you just need to be a little bit better and work a little bit harder to be called great. That's the reality. I remember when I started my nonprofit, when I just about to get into college, people started to talk about, oh, how great is it to have such idea and courage at such a young age. And I was like, really? I think that was just normal. Every time I received an award for it becoming the best for X, I was humbled and honored, definitely. But on the other hand, I felt very bad because I knew I wasn't that good. And if I was already the best for that, I could only imagine what kind of standards would we have. We live in the world where the average is overrated. Sometimes it will give you the advantage. But if you remain to use the average to become the standard of greatness, then you wouldn't progress, you wouldn't make the best of it. Because what sets you apart from the rest is when you stay true to what is great and you always try to improve the standard of greatness. To do so, you need to surround yourself with the people who will help you to grow, who will raise your standards of greatness. And in many cases, those people who are different from you. If you keep staying in a box, then that box will be your world. Sometimes you need to go out of the box to see what is out there. When I was in school in Padang, I was born in Padang. I won practically almost all the competitions that we had there. I was already the best, and I thought I already achieved the standard of greatness. But when I moved to Jakarta, I was shocked, and I had to raise my standard to stay relevant. When I moved to New York again, my standard was elevated. I learned to see what it takes to remain competitive. But you do not have to move to somewhere else to go out of your box. Sometimes what you need is just to surround yourself with the people who are different from you. It keeps you empathetic, and I think at a time like this, it becomes much more relevant for us to be surrounded by the people who are different from us. Those who are different from you will challenge you, will push you to break your limits. They will question your norms and your ideals. Allow them to affect you. Try to listen and understand. Do not disregard the opposing points of view, because when you embrace the differences, you learn to grow and to cope with different challenges, and that's what makes you people. My last piece of advice is celebrate small wins. A lot of people think that I'm a natural born speaker. I mean, like, if you're 35 and you've been to over 50 countries to speak, been to hundreds of places to speak, from the presidential palace or even in a small gathering in a family, you will think that I will be the natural person who can adapt easily in any situation. The thing is, I'm not. I wasn't brave, I wasn't confident, I was insecure. But I forced myself to be brave. I practiced a lot. I prepared. I spent thousands of hours to practice in so many ways, practicing in front of mirrors, listening to or watching to somebody else's speeches, recording my own and then evaluating them later, reading a lot and then practicing through the actual event itself. So what you see today is not a natural talent. It's a trained person who pushed himself to break the limits set by his surroundings, and most of them by himself. Even after thousands of hours of practice and hundreds of hours of performance, let alone perfection, it is still far from greatness. I've been speaking in public since I was very, very young. I started from a small family gathering, giving school announcements to my classmates, campaigning for students' council, and so many other small and insignificant events. But they all built me to who I am today, and I've been, and that's basically what we're seeing today. Every time I achieve a new milestone in my speaking experiences, I celebrate it. It could be with friends, families, or just my colleagues. It could even just be with a private note that I kept to myself. It could be just a moment of silence. The point is, I take time to celebrate my progress. Research shows that the more frequently people experience the sense of progress, the more likely they're to be creatively productive in the long run. A small win can make all the difference in how you feel and perform. Having huge dream is good, but getting that big win instantly is very rare. So drop down your big dreams to minor milestones and celebrate every time you feel you make progress. That small wins are the ones which will make you keep going, because after all, success is a series of small wins. Graduates, here's the thing. I can spend all time to regret the things I've done wrong in the past. But I also understand that life is mysterious. Every decision that we make brings us to another point in life, which might not be the case if we decided differently. If I'm grateful with who I am today, then I should have not to be worried about my decisions in the past, because no matter of how they were, they led me to the point I am now, which I'm grateful. All this time I told myself to look for perfection. I got mad when things did not go on my way. I got frustrated when I've done everything I could, yet the result was not as I expected. I got annoyed by my imperfections. I got annoyed by rejections. However, I want to use this opportunity to tell my present self, my future self, and particularly you, that our goal should not be perfection, but progress. Later in life, I'm sure that I might get disappointed again to myself, to my imperfection. But I just want my future self to know, and you, that if I've done everything in the best of my power, that it happened, that the outcome is not as I expected, I should just be okay. It's the moment that I need to be surrendered to God and let Him intervene and to let Him help me to accept things the way they are. I want to tell my future self and you that regardless of how good I'm being trained for something, it will never surpass my passion for something. I believe that passion comes across in your action when you're genuine. And I believe genuinity cannot be trained. When you deliver something genuinely, people will understand, people will get it, because above all, people feel. I might get disappointed by the people to the extent that I hate this life, but I want my future self and you to know that I have people who have been and will always be there at any time or at any point of my life. They will be there no matter what, to remind me, to cheer me up, to be with me, and therefore I should not take them for granted. I want my future self and you to know that a particular event should not change my perception about the beautiful life and the image that God has put in me. As long as I make progress, it is enough. Even when I get stuck and stay at the same point for quite some time, it is still okay. As long as I'm trying, I'm learning, I'm making progress. Those are the attitudes that brought me where I am today, and I believe that will lead you to your wildest dreams as well. Graduates, do not fear rejection. Deal with it. Understand your time.